coming.
What do you really want for Christmas?
2 lesbians, probably. Sisters. I'm just watching.
Having a laugh. This is the look, man.
Imagine the noise of Rolf Ellis's vibrator.
Be gentle with me.
Yes. What?
It's a boy.
I can read women.
Oh, don't.
No.
Go get the guitar.
I say if it's guitar, if it ain't broke, it should be.
Stay up late every night this Christmas with BBC Two.
Satisfaction.
This is BBC One. Now the news with Peter Sissons.
Challenge as he condemns America for lying. If you're so sure I have deadly weapons, send in the CIA. Where a 12-year-old fended for himself when his mother disappeared. And the Blackburn goal that ruined Manchester United's Christmas. Good evening. Iraq hit back at Britain and America today over the rejection of Saddam's lengthy declaration of weapons innocence. The Iraqi dictator's chief scientific advisor said he'd answer any questions about Iraq's programs and provide the list of scientists that had been requested. And in a surprise move, he offered to admit to Iraq agents from America's overseas intelligence arm, the CIA, to point the weapons inspectors at sites they suspect. Our World Affairs correspondent Peter Biles reports.
Saddam Hussein showing that he too can do a bit of saber rattling. But greeting a delegation from Belarus today, Saddam revealed that he's still the master of surprise. Iraq is inviting the CIA into the country to help the UN weapons inspectors. They've been continuing their trawl, but they still haven't found any evidence pointing to illegal weapons programs. The United States and Britain, though, insist that Iraq's weapons declaration is flawed. As the public relations war enters a new phase, one of Saddam Hussein's key advisors responded by rubbishing recent American and British reports on Iraq's weapons.
After 24 days of inspections covering practically all the sites named in those reports, and after the submission of our declaration of December 7th, the lies and baseless allegations have been uncovered.
The US, meanwhile, is coalition building in the Gulf, with America's top general, Richard Myers, meeting officials in Kuwait. It's here that the US Army has just held a huge military exercise, almost within sight of the Iraqi border. But Washington is under diplomatic pressure to reveal what it really knows about Iraq's weapons.
The United States is going to share some intelligence. The British are going to share some intelligence. We're reluctant to do that for fear that the Iraqis will hunt down the sources, but nevertheless, the UN inspectors will get what they want.
America is unlikely to be moved by Iraq's offer to the CIA to help the UN inspectors identify suspect sites. What the US wants is more aggressive inspections, with the UN taking Iraqi scientists out of the country for interrogation. Peter Biles, BBC News.
Let's go straight to our Washington correspondent Nick Bryant, who's at the White House. Nick, what's the score? Is the White House going to take Saddam up on the offer to admit the CIA?
A very categoric no from the White House tonight, Peter. They're saying that the burden of proof is on Saddam Hussein to show that he hasn't got weapons of mass destruction, rather than on the UN Weapons Inspectorate or Western intelligence agencies, for that matter, to show that he has. They're dismissing this latest move from Iraq as a publicity stunt. That said, they do acknowledge that evidence would be useful to gather, to present to the international community, to present to public opinion at home. That's why they want to see the UN weapons inspections regime really toughened up. There are about 113 weapons inspectors out there at the moment on the ground in Baghdad. The Americans would like to see that number increased to about 300.
But they say in the battle for proof, it's on Saddam to show goodwill. But in the battle for world opinion, not least among putative coalition members, surely the US is going to have to engage and explore the Iraqi arguments and offers and not reject them out of hand.
Peter, the Bush administration would say that they have engaged already, that they gave Saddam Hussein an opportunity with this declaration to show what he had. And the tough line coming out of the Bush administration this week, he had his chance and he blew it. Now, a more nuanced wording coming out of the White House this evening. that there is still an opportunity for Saddam Hussein to present fresh information, as one White House official put it, to come forward, to front up, to fess up to what he has. The Americans sending that message to Baghdad, but also to members of a potential military coalition, that America is still looking for a diplomatic solution to this crisis.
Nick Bryant in Washington, thank you. Here, a 12-year-old boy faces Christmas in care after being left at home to fend for himself for nearly 2 weeks. His mother had disappeared and he'd been going to school in South London every day without telling anyone because he didn't want to get her into trouble. Police have appealed to 53-year-old Jill Parker to let them know she's safe.
For nearly a fortnight, the 12-year-old boy lived here at his Battersea home alone in the run-up to Christmas. Today the lights were on, but the South London house was empty. The boy's mother, Jill Parker, had apparently left on the evening of December the 7th. Miss Parker, a widow who's known to have suffered depression since the death of her husband at Christmas time 3 years ago, hasn't been seen since.
It meant that for 12 days the boy was left here to fend for himself. Through it all, he fed himself, clothed himself and went to school, telling no one that his mother had gone missing, apparently for fear of causing trouble.
It was only when a colleague of his mother raised the alarm that police called. The boy was taken into care and placed with family friends. Neighbours had seen nothing amiss.
They're just a really sweet, normal family. He's always out playing with his friends outside. Jill comes around for tea sometimes. They're just a really nice family. They're friends of ours.
The boy didn't even tell a visiting friend of his mother's absence. He went shopping for sweets and magazines in his local newsagent. A pupil of a nearby independent school, his head teacher has praised his courage.
He coped terribly well. He's been very responsible and resilient. Obviously, once we began to talk to him, he got quite upset, but he has been very brave, and his only aim really was to protect his mother.
Tonight, the police are still urging Miss Parker or anyone who knows where she is to come forward. Many calls reporting potential sightings of her are already being followed up. Clarence Mitchell, BBC News, South London.
Private health companies may get the chance to run new treatment centres for the NHS. More than 20 centres are planned to perform routine surgery and reduce pressure on existing hospitals. The Health Secretary, Alan Milburn, will give more details tomorrow. Richard Lister is outside St Mary's Hospital in West London now. Richard, what is this intended to achieve?
Basically, Peter, the government is hoping that these new facilities will cut the number of people waiting for routine surgery, things like hip replacement, knee replacement, cataracts and so on. The problem for hospitals like St Mary's here and so many others is that they're having to juggle emergency procedures, which of course they're called to do on at very short notice, with these routine cases, which very often have to go and take a back seat if new emergency cases arrive. So people who have an appointment for a hip replacement suddenly find they have to go away for a couple of weeks because there are too many emergency cases to deal with. So the government feels this is a good idea and that private money is a good resource which they should use to tackle the problem.
And is it a signal that the part privatisers, the modernisers in the NHS have won?
Well, to some extent, it's a sign that the government is committed to going forward with this programme, but at the same time, there is a great deal of unhappiness within the Labour Party and within the union movement, particularly public sector workers, who feel that this is a steady erosion of the NHS that we've come to know so well over the past few decades. They say that this is a piecemeal erosion of the NHS, and people like Labour's former Health Secretary, Frank Dobson, say injecting more private money into the NHS is simply the wrong way to go.
The National Health Service was founded by the Labour Party. It's our greatest achievement, and I see no reason why the government, for ideological reasons, should keep dragging in the private sector. There's no evidence that they'll bring about any improvements at all.
So tonight the government really has a fight on its hands. It thinks it has a good idea, a way to cut waiting lists, but there is an ideological battle which is going to be very hard fought indeed.
Richard Lister, thank you. There's been serious rioting in the French city of Marseille. Dozens of youths went on the rampage after a man was stabbed to death in a street fight. Cars were set on fire and riot police sent in to control the violence were pelted with stones and bottles. The Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has ordered the arrest of anyone interfering with the oil industry. For 3 weeks, the country has been crippled by a strike. The Supreme Court's now ordered oil workers to get back to work. Yesterday, the British government advised anyone who didn't have to be in Venezuela to leave. Organisers of London's bid for the Olympics say it's being undermined by mixed messages from the government. Downing Street has denied that it's already decided not to back the bid for the Games in 2012. The British Olympic Association says if Britain doesn't win now, it won't get another chance for decades. Daniel Bircher reports.
Olympic glory Sydney style. The 2000 Games a success for the host nation, but all of that takes years of preparation. And before the glittering prize, there's this. The area in East London at the centre of the bid for 2012. It takes imagination to see the Olympics coming here, and it takes money. London's bid can only go ahead with the backing of the government. And today Downing Street denied a newspaper report that it had already been scrapped. More uncertainty for those behind the bid, and growing unease at what they describe as damaging spin from within some government departments.
There are some conflicting messages that are coming out, and I think that it's unhelpful that we've seen leaked letters and the like. You have to remember that this project started back in 1997 and is working through a strategy and a process for the government to reach a decision at the end of January.
Ministers will be casting a nervous backwards glance at other expensive prestige projects that ran into trouble. The fiasco surrounding the replacement of Wembley Stadium, the bid for the World Athletics Championships that ended in failure, and the Dome, a financial flop. They'll want to be sure the Olympic bid can succeed.
We have a very negative approach to these sort of things in this country. Everyone is blessed with the benefit of hindsight, apart from those, of course, who have to take the decision.
Manchester's Commonwealth Games showed just what can be achieved. Olympic organisers say if Britain doesn't bid now, there won't be another chance for decades. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
Just 2 days to Christmas, and we don't seem to be spending our hard-earned cash with wild abandon. It seems we're spending around the same amount as we did last year. Experts had predicted that this year's consumer boom would continue throughout the festive period. Our economics editor Evan Davis has been looking at the latest figures for high street spending.
Christmas tree sellers say it's a good time of year. Well, they would, wouldn't they? But is it busy in the shops? As much as trees and tinsel, the great Christmas ritual is trying to guess whether we consumers are overdoing it again. After all, this has been a year of big consumer spending. Right now, we can only guess at how Christmas is going. You can't really tell by just looking at how many people are on the streets, because you never know how much they're actually spending. Anecdotally, it seems that trading conditions are respectable this Christmas. Sales are growing, but crucially, they're not growing as fast as the shops have become used to over what's been a very frenetic shopping year. And some evidence. In November, high street sales grew, but grew less quickly than earlier months. And figures on how much cash is swishing around the economy suggest growth, but slower growth. In short, spending is still speeding ahead, just not accelerating.
We haven't noticed a slowdown as such. I mean, certainly sales haven't as been as sparkling perhaps as previous years, but certainly the strength is still there. And I think for next year, we're expecting trade to be steady, if no better or worse than that.
As it happens, if there is a little sign of calm on the high streets this Christmas, rejoice. The bigger the consumer splurge, the bigger the subsequent crash. While 2002 needed a consumer boom to cure the horrible effects of a global economic slowdown, 2003 needs something else to cure the horrible effects of a consumer boom. Evan Davis, BBC News.
Now with news of Manchester United's empty Christmas stocking at Blackburn and a Merseyside cracker with little but the bang, here's Rob Bonnet.
Thanks, Peter. Good evening to you. Well, Roy Keane reappeared as substitute for Manchester United's in-form team this afternoon after almost 4 months away, and they promptly lost 1-0 at Blackburn Rovers, a result that abruptly ended United's 8-match winning sequence. But both Liverpool and Everton lost ground at the top too. Their goalless draw will have pleased the blue half of Merseyside more than the red, but it may also have landed Liverpool's Steven Gerrard in hot water.
Derby matches can bring out the best and the worst in players. After 87 goalless, frustrating minutes, it was a red mist that came down on Merseyside. Though the referee didn't spot Steven Gerrard's two-footed lunge on Gary Naismith, some Everton players certainly did. Gerrard apologised to Naismith after the match, but it may be up to the FA video panel to decide if sorry is enough. The match had been remarkably uneventful up to that moment. Liverpool never built on early chances. A superb volley from Risa, the pick of those. Everton fans banked on a half-hour cameo from Wayne Rooney. It almost paid off. All in all, a Merseyside derby that will soon slip from the memory, though Gerrard may not be allowed to forget it so easily. By contrast, Blackburn Rovers fans will be talking about Gary Flitcroft's goal for some time. His first half volley proved to be the winner against Manchester United. Roy Keane made his first appearance in almost 4 months, but half an hour from him couldn't inspire Ruud van Nistelrooy to hit the target. Dwight York really should have put the result beyond doubt. He saw the funny side, but most importantly for Rovers, he was still smiling at the final whistle. Ollie Foster, BBC News.
So the only change at the top of the Premiership is that Everton and Liverpool each move up a place, dropping Newcastle to 6th. United stay 3rd, 2 points behind Chelsea, 4 behind the leaders Arsenal. Now in the Scottish Premier League, leaders Rangers came from behind to win 2-1 at Partick Thistle. Partick took the lead 7 minutes into the match through Alex Burns, his 6th goal in 3 games. The home side held on to their advantage until midway through the second half, when Michael Moles equalised for Rangers. Partick were reduced to 10 men before Ronald de Boer won the match for the visitors with 11 minutes remaining. So Rangers' win re-establishes their 4-point cushion at the top, ahead of Celtic, who are fully 20 points in front of the 3rd-place club, that's Hearts. Well, some interesting results in Rugby Union's Power Gen Cup for you. National League Division 1 leaders Rotherham won at Bristol. Cup holders London Irish scored 2 late tries to beat Newcastle, and Saracens saw off Sale Sharks. Quarter-final draw was made this evening. The pick of the ties is Rotherham's trip to London Irish. Harlequins play Leicester in the Cup for the 3rd year in a row. And that's the sport for now. Peter.
Thanks, Rob. Now let's get the latest on the weather with Helen Willetts.
Peter, it's the question on everybody's lips, but it looks certain now that we're not going to see a white Christmas anywhere in the UK. The concern is for heavy rain. Now, the wettest days of the week are likely to be tomorrow and again on Boxing Day, and potentially very windy weather too. So with people heading out on the roads and the ferries, there'll be some difficult travel conditions, and further flooding is certainly possible. After last night's rain, we've still over 60 flood warnings out across England, and the next batch of rain is already coming into the southwest of England and Northern Ireland. Ahead of it, some mist and fog patches to watch out for if you're travelling, but the rain becomes the main focus by the end of the night. Obviously mild and windy as well, no frost worries, and some of the wettest weather is still likely to be in western and northern areas, perhaps the southeast holding on to the driest weather, but really for most of us it's a bit of a washout tomorrow. Really miserable start to the new week. Heavy rain on and off, hill fog around, coastal fog as well, so it'll be grey and murky. We may see it drying up in southeastern areas for a time around the middle of the day, but all in all there'll be periods of heavy rain for most other parts, and it'll be windy. Gales up through the Irish Sea, and later in the day potentially some storm force winds up in Shetland, so very miserable indeed. One thing it will be though is mild, much milder than it has been, temperatures well above average. Now, not quite so wet as we head into Tuesday. Mind you, there will be one batch of rain moving through, followed by showers, but again mild, some brighter sunny intervals, and a quieter day we think for Christmas Day at this stage. Some places could stay dry with a few sunny intervals, and the winds start to ease by then, but unfortunately it's all downhill again for Boxing Day when it turns wet and very windy, Peter.
Helen, thank you. Finally, tonight's main news again. Iraq has hit back at Britain and America over the rejection of Saddam's declaration on weapons. Baghdad's offered to admit CIA agents and let them inspect the suspect sites. There are bulletins throughout the night on BBC News 24, but from us all here, good night.
Christmas, what does it say about you? You Swedes are in control, but you laugh at the strangest things.
I mean, just be yourself. Yeah. You know, a bit more relaxed.
Something like that?
Not quite.
BBC comedy this Christmas. You'll laugh your head off.
Relive the excitement of this year's World Cup firsthand with BBC One. England fans and players take you there with their video diaries. World Cup 2002, Beckham for Breakfast is now at 10:55.
Oh dear.
Problems there.
Hey, look at that! Have you ever seen
Hello and welcome to a special Christmas edition of the... Calm down. Calm down. Welcome to a special Christmas edition of They Think It's All Over. And this year we're going to give our panellists the show they deserve. They've been behaving like big kids all year, so we're having a children's party. We've got Chris, yes, we've got Jelly, and with them is Steve Cram. And we've got Crackers and Ginger Nuts, and with them is Phil Tufnell. Oh, and by the way, David Gower's off in Australia summarising the Ashes. I can do that from here. England are shit. Now, during the show, we'll be playing party games, and we've all got a present, so feel free to open them. Rory, why don't you open yours first of all?
I will do. I'm very, very excited by this.
Excited.
Yeah.
Rory's first, Steve.
It's the Manchester United book. What's the time, ref? That's very good.
These are genuine things from club shops. Manchester United actually do sell a tell the time
what's the
thing.
time, David? This is Beckham. 3-0.
Gary?
Ah, good present.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
What are they?
Leicester City boxers shop. You're not saying they're pants, are you?
No, no, no. Just full of shit. Steve?
This is going to be from the Sunderland shop, right?
I would have thought so.
An authentic brass miner's oil lamp. Oh, look at that.
And why is that?
Haven't got a match.
Why is that particular to Sunderland?
Stadium of Light. It was built on an old mine, you see.
Was it? That's why they're going down then?
Yep.
Jonathan?
You leave.
Is this a real present?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, very kind. Did you buy it, Nick?
Yeah.
You're very kind. Play tennis the Tim Henman way.
Steve?
I've got flight socks, a travel pillow and a sleeping mask.
That's for when you're sitting down watching Mark Williams do a break.
Actually, that'll come in handy, because I'm trying to get the present you really wanted for you, Steve, that you asked me for. First class trip, all expenses paid, back to the 80s.